You are bleeding out internally, and society handed you the knife. Everything you've been taught about money is a meticulously engineered lie designed to keep you trapped. Right now, 5 invisible assassins are silently executing your future. Miss them, and you are mathematically doomed. A mentor once leaned across a dimly lit table, looked me dead in the eyes, and told me a truth so brutally devastating it shattered my entire worldview like a comet obliterating a glass house. He told me that everything I had been taught about survival, every piece of financial advice handed down by the generations before me, was a meticulously engineered lie designed to keep me trapped. I started from absolutely nothing. I had 0 trust fund, 0 VIP connections, and 0 hope. Just a guy staring into the dark abyss of the night sky, trying to figure out how to build a rocket ship out of the rusted scrap metal of my own failures. Look around you. The universe is endlessly expanding, yet for the vast majority of people, their wallets, their dreams, and their very life forces are violently contracting. We are living in a society suffocating from mass burnout, where crushed, exhausted souls are forced to march to the relentless, atmospheric pressure of a system built to feed on them. Let us be brutally honest for a moment. This system is flawlessly designed to keep you broke, sprinting on a hamster wheel just to keep the grid illuminated while you wither away in the dark. But you do not have to be a disposable battery in someone else's machine. Rich Habits Daily 5 warmly welcomes you back to the cosmos of wealth creation, where we break down the invisible black holes silently, ripping your future to shreds. If you are ready to step out of the dark and reclaim your financial destiny, hit that subscribe button right now to support the channel and fuel our drive to bring you these life-altering truths every single week. The first and most fatal trap you will encounter is the insidious poison of working strictly for money. If your singular metric for success in this life is the immediate dollar amount printed on your paycheck, you are mathematically and spiritually doomed. Let us examine the terrifying physics of this trap. Society aggressively herds you down a path that conditions you to optimize for the absolute highest starting salary right out of the gate. You proudly take the $60,000 job over the $40,000 one, feeling the temporary weight of a heavy wallet. But almost instantly, you hit a suffocating terminal velocity. You reach an income ceiling so abruptly it snaps your neck, because you are committing the ultimate sin of wealth creation, trading your irreplaceable, finite hours for dollars. No matter how brilliant you are bound by the immovable laws of thermodynamics, possessing only 24 hours in a day, and your potential dies a quiet death within that cage. Then there is the silent, invisible route I call the gravitational slingshot. To the outside observer, it looks like sheer madness at launch. You willingly accept the lower pay, the grueling grind, and the absolute, raw struggle in the trenches. But you do this because you are extracting 2 forces infinitely more powerful than hollow fiat currency: high-income skills and equity. When you possess true mastery, your earning potential ceases to be a flat, depressing line and violently arches into an exponential curve. I want you to think about the young man who starts sweeping sawdust off a cold warehouse floor as a lowly apprentice carpenter. He is making pennies, his hands are bleeding, and the world looks down on him. But he isn't there for the pennies. He is standing in the shadows, quietly downloading the structural blueprints of the universe directly into his mind. He is internalizing the absolute mastery of craftsmanship, the silent integrity of materials, and the discipline of creation. Years later, he takes that razor-sharp, high-income skill and pivots, thrusting it into a global enterprise manufacturing high-end aircraft. He never demanded a massive salary or a corner office on day one because he was too busy becoming undeniably valuable. He knew that if you want absolute ownership, if you want the equity that creates dynasties, you must first possess the dangerous knowledge of how to build the machine from scratch. You must stop endlessly chasing the laser pointer like a distracted animal. Build the laser, forge the skills in the fire of your own struggle, demand the equity later, and watch your net worth violently launch into the stratosphere. Just as that young carpenter learned to violently reject the temptation of an immediate payout to build a lasting empire, you must fiercely protect your newly acquired value from the second trap waiting to devour it. Society has engineered a psychological prison so perfectly camouflaged that most people willingly lock themselves inside and hand over the key. I call it the toxic performance of fake wealth, otherwise known as lifestyle inflation. The moment you start making a little bit of real money, the atmospheric pressure of consumerism bears down on you with a crushing weight. You are told that success must be broadcasted, that your rising status must be immediately validated by the luxury car lease, the designer clothes with screaming logos, and the overpriced apartment in the trendy zip code. You are essentially tricked into taking the hard-earned capital that could have bought your permanent freedom and setting it on fire just to cast a fleeting, impressive shadow on the wall for people who do not even care about you. I remember watching brilliant peers, people with minds like supercomputers, get their first taste of a six-figure income. Almost overnight, their lives transformed into heavily leveraged stage plays. They traded their freedom for monthly payments, effectively signing a blood pact to remain on the corporate hamster wheel for the next 30 years just to maintain an illusion. What they did not understand is that true wealth is astonishingly silent, while debt is deafeningly loud. When you buy liabilities to look rich, you are bleeding out internally while smiling for the cameras. You are allowing the marketing algorithms and the hollow expectations of a deeply sick society to dictate your cash flow. If you want to break the gravitational pull of the middle class, you have to develop a sociopathic level of indifference to the opinions of the masses. You must find a visceral, almost terrifying joy in living far below your means while quietly amassing military-grade financial ammunition. While your coworkers are drowning in auto loan debt to drive a depreciating piece of German engineering, you should be funneling every spare cent into income-producing assets. You are not depriving yourself. You are deliberately starving the ego to feed your destiny. The goal is never to look like a millionaire. The goal is to actually be one, sleeping soundly at night, knowing that if the entire economy collapses tomorrow, your fortress is built on solid bedrock, not maxed out credit cards. You must look in the mirror and ask yourself if you want to be a peacock, showing off fragile feathers for a day, or a silent predator, ruling the financial jungle for a lifetime. Once you cure yourself of the pathetic need to perform for strangers and actually begin to aggressively stockpile your capital, you step blindly into the jaws of the third killer, one that masquerades as your safest, most reliable friend. We were all brainwashed by well-meaning parents and outdated financial advisors to believe that the ultimate path to security is to work hard, pay your taxes, and aggressively save your money in a traditional bank account. But in the modern macroeconomic reality, saving your way to wealth is a mathematical impossibility. Storing your life force in fiat currency is the equivalent of trying to carry water in a bucket made of dissolving sugar. There is a silent arsonist living inside your bank account, and its name is inflation. You cannot see it. You cannot hear it. But every single second the clock ticks, the purchasing power of your carefully hoarded cash is being systematically vaporized. The central banks are endlessly printing currency out of thin air, diluting the value of the dollars you traded your precious, unrecoverable blood and sweat to obtain. When you leave your money sitting idle in a savings account, yielding a fraction of a percent while real inflation runs rampant, you are bleeding out on the operating table. You are slowly, safely, and comfortably guaranteeing your own financial ruin. The rich understand a fundamental law of physics that the poor do not. Money is kinetic energy. It is not meant to be hoarded in a stagnant pool. It is meant to be deployed like soldiers on a battlefield to capture more territory. To survive this silent theft, you must radically shift your identity from a consumer and a saver to a relentless owner of assets. You must convert your melting fiat currency into hardened, indestructible value. Whether that is acquiring scarce real estate, investing in cash-flowing businesses, or accumulating index funds that track the great engines of human industry, you must get your capital off the sidelines and force it to work for you. I had to learn this the hard way, watching the value of my early, hard-fought savings essentially evaporate because I was too paralyzed by fear to invest. Security is not found in the illusion of a bank balance. It is found in the undeniable ownership of productive assets that scale with the expansion of the money supply. Stop letting the system legally steal your time by inflating away your money. But even if you master the mechanics of converting melting fiat into hardened assets, your entire financial fortress will collapse from within if you do not eradicate the fourth killer. It took me years of repeated, agonizing betrayals and failures to realize that wealth creation is profoundly biological. You will inevitably absorb the financial immune system of the people you spend the most time with. The fourth silent killer is the toxic, gravitational pull of broke advice and the crab bucket mentality of your immediate circle. You cannot learn how to build a rocket ship from people who are absolutely terrified of leaving the atmosphere. Yet, day in and day out, people who want to become millionaires seek validation, permission, and financial guidance from friends, family members, and colleagues who are actively drowning in debt and paralyzed by scarcity. When you start to ascend, when you start waking up at 4 a.m. to read balance sheets, when you stop going out to the bars on Friday nights to build your side enterprise, something deeply unsettling will happen. The people you love will try to pull you back down. They will not do it out of malice, but out of a deep-seated, subconscious fear. Your evolution threatens their stagnation. Your discipline holds up a terrifying mirror to their own excuses. They will tell you that the market is rigged, that your business idea is too risky, and that you should just be happy with the miserable, soul-crushing comfort of your stagnant paycheck. If you internalize their projected fears, if you let the limits of their imagination become the boundaries of your reality, you will die financially right there in the dirt next to them. I had to look around my life and ruthlessly sever the cords connecting me to people whose mindsets were anchored in poverty and victimhood. It is an incredibly lonely, brutal process. You will spend seasons of your life eating alone, working alone, and walking alone in the dark. But you must curate your environment with the precision of a surgeon. Seek out the rooms where your absolute best is considered the baseline average. Find mentors who have already walked through the fire, people whose financial reality makes your wildest dreams look like child's play. When you surround yourself with builders, owners, and titans, their ambition becomes your oxygen. Protect your mind with lethal force, because the wrong advice, delivered by the right person with good intentions, is enough to bankrupt your future. When you finally isolate yourself from the comforting, mediocre whispers of the average, you are left completely alone in the silence to face the fifth and most relentless executioner of dreams. This is the killer that takes down the smartest, most ambitious minds of our generation, the lethal, dopamine-driven disease of instant gratification. We live in an era where the human brain has been hijacked by a relentless barrage of microscopic, immediate rewards. You can press a button on a glass screen and have food delivered to your door in 20 minutes, a date in 10 minutes, and a rush of cheap entertainment in 10 seconds. Because of this artificial programming, an entire generation expects wealth to behave the same way. People want the six-figure passive income by next Tuesday. They want the multi-million-dollar exit after 6 months of half-hearted effort. And when it doesn't happen, when they hit the agonizing, lonely plateau of real work, they shatter into a million pieces and quit. Real wealth. The kind of generational power that alters the trajectory of your family's bloodline forever. Does not operate on the timeline of a viral video. It is built in the dark, over a decade of unglamorous, monotonous, bone-crushing repetition that nobody will ever applaud you for. It requires a psychological endurance that borders on the insane. I remember staring at my own bank accounts, my own failed projects, pouring rivers of sweat into my work for years with absolutely zero visible return. That is the crucible. That is the valley of the shadow of death, where 99% of people drop their tools and surrender to the system. They lack the capacity to delay their gratification, so they trade a kingdom tomorrow for a bowl of cheap soup today. You must understand the terrifying, quiet magic of compounding. Compounding does not just apply to money, it applies to your skills, your network, and your reputation. For years, the line on the graph will look completely flat. You will feel like you are pushing a boulder up a vertical cliff in the rain. But if you refuse to break, if you keep showing up and relentlessly executing while everyone else is distracted by the shiny object of the week, that flat line will eventually hit an inflection point. And when it snaps upward, the results will be so violently explosive that it will look like an overnight success to the very people who mocked you during the quiet years. You have to fall in love with the boredom of execution. You have to amputate your need for immediate applause. Plant the seeds deeply, water them with your absolute obsession, and possess the cold, calculating patience to let the roots grow in the dark. Your empire is waiting for you in the future, but you have to be tough enough to survive the brutal passage of time to get there. Building true, generational wealth is not merely a mechanical process of earning money. It is a brutal, lifelong psychological war against the insidious forces designed to keep you trapped in the middle class. To build an unshakable financial empire, you must aggressively defend your life force against these silent killers. First, you must violently reject the toxic performance of fake wealth, choosing the quiet power of income-producing assets over the deafening trap of debt-fueled luxury. Second, you must abandon the archaic illusion of saving your way to prosperity. Storing wealth in melting fiat currency guarantees your ruin at the hands of inflation. Instead, you must deploy your capital into indestructible, scaling assets. Third, you must ruthlessly curate your environment. Wealth creation is biological, and if you surround yourself with the crab bucket mentality of those paralyzed by scarcity, you will inherit their financial demise. You must sever ties with broke advice and seek out rooms where greatness is the baseline. Finally, you must conquer the ultimate executioner of dreams, the disease of instant gratification. Real wealth is forged in the dark, demanding years of monotonous, bone-crushing discipline while you wait for the violent upward snap of compounding. The masses will always trade a future kingdom for a fleeting moment of comfort today. To rule the financial jungle, you must starve your ego, endure the agonizingly quiet years of execution, and build a fortress of undeniable value that will outlast the collapse of any temporary economic illusion. Generational wealth is not a product of luck, timing, or sheer intellect. It is the ultimate byproduct of psychological endurance and extreme delayed gratification. Society is mathematically and culturally engineered to extract your wealth through consumerism, inflation, peer pressure, and dopamine addiction. To achieve permanent financial freedom, you must become deeply comfortable with being completely misunderstood by the masses. You must be willing to look poor on the outside while actually becoming incredibly wealthy on the inside, executing in the dark long before the world ever sees or applauds your results. Audit your ego and spending. Take a ruthless inventory of your expenses. Cancel the luxury leases, sell the depreciating liabilities, and stop buying things to impress people you do not care about. Redirect that exact cash flow into income-producing assets. Empty the sugar bucket. Keep only a 3 to 6 month emergency fund in cash. Take the rest of your idle fiat currency and invest it into hard, productive assets like index funds, real estate, or your own business, so inflation stops vaporizing your purchasing power. Purge your inner circle. Stop discussing your grand ambitions with fearful, stagnant people. If you cannot find local builders and titans to network with, change your environment digitally. Consume books, podcasts, and masterminds created by people whose financial baseline makes your dream look small. Commit to the decade. Destroy your expectation for overnight success. Pick a high-value skill or business model and commit to doing the boring, unglamorous work every single day for the next 5 to 10 years without expecting an immediate payout. Fall in love with the boredom of execution. Out of the 4 silent killers, we just discussed fake wealth, traditional savings, broke advice, or instant gratification. Which one do you think is the absolute hardest to overcome in today's society? Please drop your answer and share your perspective in the comments below so we can all learn from each other. If you found value in this message and want to continue building a bulletproof mindset, please hit that subscribe button. Your support gives this channel the momentum to keep creating hard-hitting, valuable content for you. See you in the next one.